This is the worst problem facing gardeners in Australia today. This is not so much a dust, dry soil as it is a water repellent soil. Many soils become water repellent, and when you try and re-wet them, well, I'll just show you this. There's your basic thing. You pour your water across the top, and look at that. This one you can actually see it quite clearly. The water is running off rather than going in, and you can just pull those little wet bits away, and underneath it's bone dry. Now you can beat this. It's an interesting challenge to beat, but you can beat it, and that's what we're going to run through now. So get your pencils and paper. This is the big one. How to beat these sorts of soils now right across Australia in just about every area. Now I'm sure many of you are wondering, why does a soil ever become water repellent? How come the water won't go in? Well, firstly, it happens most in sandy soils. And often it's caused by mulches. When a mulch sits on the surface of ground and you put it on before it's composted, sort of waxy, oily material leaves that mulch as it breaks down and coats each individual grain in the soil. And then when the soil dries out and you try to re-wet it, that oily, waxy coating on the grains won't let the water back in, and it stays dry, and you've got a real problem. The funny thing is that if you took that same organic material and put it into a compost heap, all those wonderful billions of microorganisms that develop in there, bacteria, fungi and all that, when they break down the organic matter, they also break down all those waxy bits, the oily bits as well, so that none of that problem occurs. You don't get the coating of the particles. Not only that, but the actual tiny remains of organic matter that you get at the end actually aids the soil to form what we call structure. In other words, tiny little cracks in the soil. And a healthy soil that's got that, with the cracks, it actually lets the water in when it rains or when you water it, and drying out is never really a problem. They always re-wet. So the thing that causes the problem when you use it as a mulch solves the problem when it's used as a compost. So what are we going to do? Well, we've bought some stuff that's pretty well composted. This particular one here is well and truly composted. Ideally, I'd like it a little bit more composted. You know it's well composted when you can't recognise any of the shape of any of the woody bits that are in it. But this isn't bad. What we'll simply do is dig all this in. This will give it an inoculation of all those microorganisms. The soil will start to work, everything will breed up in it, and in time this soil will be fine. What's the number one way of staying fit in the entire world? Gardening. Save all those gym fees. Think of this not as work, but as saving money. It's a great way to stay fit. Well, I've dug all that in. The next thing now, we'll just do some more planting because it's a bit bare because it's been dry. And then we'll put a surface coating of another fairly well composted mulch. Not as well as the first, but fairly well. So this soil over the weeks, months, years ahead will just continue to get better and better and better. What I'm now doing is applying wetter soil with one of these hose end applicators. Now, just for the record, these sort of horticultural detergents work pretty well on sandy soils, but not much at all on other sorts of soils. So unless your soil's fairly sandy, I wouldn't bother. But they do help enormously in opening sandy soils up so that water can penetrate. They probably only work for a matter of weeks. If you've got a real problem, you'd probably use these in dry periods 2 to 4 times a year. If all of this was very complex for you, it's really simple. Have a compost heap, make your own compost, or buy really well composted material, blackish looking material, dig it into your soil, and that really will do a lot to solve the problems of these soils that won't re-wet, where the water won't go in. The other one is use something like wetter soil or saturate. But there you are. Oh, and of course the plants we've put in, kangaroo paws and so on, are all plants that don't require much water. So this should settle down and be a very easy garden to maintain.